What is going on, Jerome's? Happy Friday. It's a beautiful Friday morning. We got our coffee here. Get your chili hot, boys. So, when we do mock drafts, generally we do 7-round variety, dinking around on the PFF simulator for the Vikings, trying to win a dozen Jerome Bardys in the next 10 years. But we're going to do a first-round mock draft, just like all the other jabronis you see out there, and we're going to get spicy. Actually, Actually, this is going to be rather mild. Like, this is going to be Minnesota spicy. Like, the taste buds here, they don't handle a lot of spice. You know what I mean? So, we're going to do a one-round mock draft. No trades, and let's go. Up at 1. So, Carolina obviously had a big contingent at Alabama's Pro Day. They're in on Bryce Young. They're in on Anthony Richardson. They're in on C.J. Stroud. I think, ultimately, C.J. Stroud is the best balance of a high floor as well as a very high ceiling. So I think that they go with C.J. Stroud, the pride of Ohio State. I think he comes in week 1, is your starter, and just go from there. Up at number 2. So this is really interesting where there's a possibility that the Texans don't go quarterback at 2. I mean, they could wait till 12, maybe, unlikely, or they could just pass on quarterback this draft, or circle around round 2, take Hendon Hooker or Tanner McKee or Clayton Tune or whatever. And they could do this because DeMeco Ryans defensive guy, and there are some very nice defensive toys up at the top of this draft. But I think that Bryce Young is too. You can't pass on Bryce Young. I understand the height, I understand the weight, I understand the durability questions, but given his leadership, given his accuracy, given his decision-making, I think that he is the second coming of Joe Burrow, and I think that playing in Houston, playing in a warm weather division certainly will help Bryce Young. So I think he's too good to pass up, and they have so many draft picks from the Deshaun trade that they'll be perfectly fine. Next up, number 3, Arizona. So, like I said, we're not doing trades in this one, but this will be a prime trade-up spot for a team that's in on Anthony Richardson. So you'd be leapfrogging the Colts, who are obviously in on quarterback. The Colts may want to come up to block and shunt another team from coming up and leapfrogging them. But here at 3, I mean, Will Anderson is the guy, right? I mean, Will Anderson is the guy, and you lost Chandler Jones 2 years ago. J.J. Watt retired, and now Monty Ossenford comes in, and he's got an alpha edge rusher, which is going to make things a lot easier on the rest of that defense. Then you got the Colts at 4. So I know that Jim Irsay wants a quarterback. I know that St. Steichen wants a quarterback. And what's interesting is that both of the big 4 quarterbacks on the board fit in. Well, they cross over a lot with Jalen Hurts, right? So they question the accuracy coming in from a college offense, as well as you have the athleticism, you have the size. So, I mean, Steichen did great things with Jalen Hurts last year, and I think that he could do great things with one of these two guys. And I think that Richardson's ceiling is a little bit higher. He's a little bit younger of a prospect than Levis as well. Has a great arm, put on a show at Lucas Oil Stadium, and I think that he stays in Indianapolis. So that's going to be really fun. It's going to be really, really fun, man. 5, the Seahawks. So they signed Geno, but they're not married to Geno, right? So basically his 3-year deal is a 1-year deal. They could take Levis, yes. They could take Witherspoon and Tariq Woolen together. That would be gross, man. I would love that. Jalen Carter also makes sense, although they did pay up for Draymond Jones. So I think that in this spot, they go edge and Tyree Wilson come on down. So, I mean, some analysts have Wilson and Will Anderson 1A, 1B. I don't quite see it that way, but Tyree Wilson, you're betting on traits coming out of Texas Tech. Like, he does have all the elements that you want from a premier pass rusher, and Seattle gets their guy. They need a lot of help on the edge at 6. So the Lions could go a lot of different directions. Now, they're going to hammer on defense. That does make sense. But also, could they take Will Levis in the spot? Because even though they like Jared Goff, do they love Jared Goff? Don't really know. But that defense does need some work. And they're going to have to do a lot of background research on Jalen Carter. But I think that him adding to that defensive interior with Aleem McNeil, with Onwuzurike, I mean, that's pretty damn good. That's pretty damn good. Where you have a guy who may have been the number 1 overall pick if Chicago had to stay put at 1. Getting him at 6. It's pretty good. 7, the Raiders. So Levis makes sense. Yes, they could circle back and get a quarterback later. It seems like they're going to be rolling with Jimmy for at least a year, maybe longer. But I don't know. But did you see that Jimmy is offered free sex for life by two establishment workers in Nevada. Must be nice. Anyways, so Levis could be in play here. Also, spoiler, Levis is going to take a little bit of a tumble. And they do need help along the offensive line. Cornerback is always an issue there. Wide receiver, I mean, Quentin Johnson with Tay would be pretty damn sweet, but they're going to go O-line. All right, Skoronski, a little bit of a surprise pick this high and in this spot and with these guys left on the board. But Skoronski, he can be tackle, he can play guard, he can be whatever you want. Just getting some beef up front makes sense for the Raiders. 8. So 8 is interesting because Levis is still on board. Desmond Ridder was a 3rd-round pick. So like they're not like fully in on a day 2 guy. But it seems like they're going to try and give him the best shot possible with Arthur Smith in this offense. And the defensive side of the ball, they could always use some edge. They could always use a little bit of help there. So we're going to go Lucas Van Ness. He was a jack of all trades in Iowa. He just simply got after it, and I think that he's going to be a beast. I think he's going to be a beast. I think that Ryan Nielsen's really going to like Van Ness. He's going to deploy him all over the place and just be a monster there. 9, you got the Bears. So now they're obviously bummed that Van Ness didn't get there, but 9, there's a lot of different directions that the Bears could go because Quentin Johnson makes sense. Gonzalez, Witherspoon makes sense. JSN makes sense. Kalijah Kancey makes sense. Brian Branch makes sense. But I think that they're going to keep Devin Witherspoon in state. Absolutely feisty like him and Jalen Johnson as well as Kyler Gordon. That's a really nice alkaline trio of cornerbacks. So I really like that pick a lot for Chicago. I understand that Gonzo's still on board, but go a different direction there. So you got the Eagles at 10. Now the Eagles defense especially lost a lot of guys, and they could go a lot of different directions here. Gonzo makes sense. Kancey makes sense, keeping him in the Keystone State, but I think Brian Branch is just too tempting. He is the quarterback of the defense. He could play slot. He could play safety. He's going to be all over the place. I just think that his versatility is going to be too damn appealing to filling the spot, especially with 2 first-round picks. 11. So everyone and their mom is mocking a tackle to the Titans at 11. Usually Paris Johnson Jr. in the spot replacing Taylor Lewan, but Tannehill is getting up there. I mean, it's a bit surprising that they even brought Tannehill back this year. And Malik Willis showed some things last year, but also showed some things that you're not really thrilled about. And he's only a 3rd-round pick. You're not married to him. Plus, the GM who drafted him, John Robinson, is out the door. And Rand Carthon could want his own guy. And we're going to shock the world. Will Levis to the Tennessee Titans coming down from Kentucky, down to Nashville, and Rand Carthon gets his own quarterback of the future to build on. I think Levis fits the type of ball that Vrabel wants to play, where he's tough, he's physical, he's a little bit cocky. Now, if you can cut down interceptions, yes, but go from there. I think they'll definitely use Levis's mobility a lot to start out with Tennessee. Next up, number 12. So the popular pick has been the Texans going quarterback and then wide receiver in the spot, but I don't think D'Amico Ryans can help himself, and I think that the allure of getting Christian Gonzalez, who a lot of people have as the cornerback 1 in this class. So you got Gonzo on one side, you got Stingley on the other. That's a fantastic cornerback duo, man. I love it. 13, the JTS Jets. So Rob Salah obviously loves his toys, but the offensive line for Aaron Rodgers needs to be fixed. Now, this assumes that they are able to keep their first-round pick in the Packers trade. I don't know if they can or will. Who knows? But Mekhi Becton, the experiment not really working out, him coming off a significant injury. Paris Johnson Jr., plug and play at left tackle, and then just you're good to go. Set and forget it. 14, you got the Patriots. Patriots also need some help along the offensive line. They could. I like how like a lot of teams are just listed quarterback. It's kind of funny. Of course, they could use some stank off the edge. They could use some cornerback help as well. But in this spot, we're going to go with Broderick Jones. Coming on in, the left tackle from Georgia. That's right. Where is he? There you go. Broderick Jones. Now, see, Belichick isn't scared off because things didn't work out with Isaiah Wynn. It's like, oh, you can't take another Georgia tackle. Shut up. Scout the player, not the helmet. Next, you have the greasy grimy Green Bay Packers. So this is interesting because all the tight ends are there. Quentin Johnson's there. JSN is there. Kalijah Kancey is there. Joey Porter Jr. is there. But I go back and forth on this. I really do. But I think JSN, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, wide receiver 1 off the board, him going to Green Bay, working with Watson, working with Dubes, that sucks. That really sucks. But, hey, at least Jordan Love got some weapons, man. Next up, you have the Washington Commies. So in this spot, I mean, you could go, well, the only place they're not good at is, or the only place they are good at is defensive line. Cornerback makes sense. I mean, tight end makes sense. But in this spot, Joey Porter Jr., I feel like he's just too talented coming in from Penn State. Love his press man skills, and he's going to change that defense from day one. 17, you got the Steelers. So it sucks that they missed out on Joey Porter Jr. Would have been a great legacy pick. But meat and potatoes, they got to get after it on the offensive line. Anton Harrison coming in from Oklahoma. Set it and forget it starter from day one. 18, so you got the Lions. So Lions already got Jalen Carter. So the draft has already been upset a little bit. And at 18, I mean, they can continue to hammer on defense. That does make a ton of sense in this spot. But do they like double and triple down? Like, are they ready to go 3 wide where they already have Jameson Williams coming off that ACL? Now if they had Quentin Johnson to Amon-Ra St. Brown, I mean, that's scary. That's a scary 3-deep trio, and they go in that direction. 19, so you got the Bucs. I mean, the Bucs could use everything, right? And maybe they go quarterback day 2, sure, in this spot. But here, they're going to take the first time off the board, Dalton Kincaid. They got rid of Brait. O.J. Howard is long gone. Gronk ain't coming back. So getting a security blanket for Baker as well as Kyle Trask makes sense here. 20. So Seahawks already got Tyree Wilson. Now, like, do they double and triple down in the trenches? I mean, they certainly could and should. Would absolutely love to see it, and they are. So Brian Bruzzi to go with Tyree Wilson, that completely changes the landscape of their front seven. And, I mean, Pete's a defensive guy, and he's going to get after it, man. He's going to rebuild things from the front to the back. Next up, you have the Chargers. So they brought back Keenan Allen, except he's not the future. Like, he's getting up there in age. I like Josh Palmer. You know, Mike Williams is a solid number 2 outside the numbers guy, but let's add a little spice. Let's add Jordan Addison, the man of Troy, staying in L.A., going to the Chargers. Justin Herbert has a slot machine. Love it. 22. So the Ravens forever have been trying to find a viable wide receiver 1 out there for Lamar. Now, that's assuming that they keep Lamar. But, you know, the Ravens thing to do has always been, I don't know what, take Nolan Smith in the spot. Put him with Odafia away, sure. But they finally do Lamar some favors if he's back. You can buy him as a Flowers. Absolute deep threat. Absolutely getting after it from the slot. I like Zay Flowers a lot. Vikings on the clock now. So if you want to get spicy, we're going Hendon Hooker here. But there's a lot of different directions. Kalijah Cansey makes sense. Deonte Banks makes sense. Nolan Smith makes a ton of sense as well. But in this spot, I think that they're just going to sit. They're going to see the board, take Deonte Banks. He's got all-pro skill set. And even though they have Andrew Booth Jr., even though they have Caleb Evans, even though they have Byron Murphy, even though Murphy's going to kick in the slot quite a bit, I think the Vikings learned the lesson last year. You can never have enough good corners, and they're just going to make each other better. And I think that Brian Flores is really going to like Deonte Banks as well as Booth as well as Evans in this spot. So 24, you got the Jaguars. Again, a lot of different directions that they could go here. I think that Cansey along that defense is going to be that game changer, that game wrecker from the inside, where maybe he's never going to be a 3-down player, but just having him as a platoon guy on the defensive line on passing situations, I love that. I love it, man. Giants at 25. So it's unfortunate that Zay Flowers is off the board. Same thing with Addison. But in this spot, you can never have enough dudes who go after and get the quarterback. Ever since they traded for Darren Waller, and they're sort of good to go in terms of the tight end spot. Otherwise, I could say Michael Myers would be down. But you could say outside the number receiver, but I don't know, Josh Downs is a slot guy, and what else are you really going to do here? So get yourself a guy who can get the quarterback. Nolan Smith, pairing up with Ujulari and company. I mean, it's going to be pretty good. Now, the Cowboys could use a lot of things here, and wide receiver is a big issue, even though they did trade for Brandon Cooks. Is he the long-term solution? Probably not. And even though CD does play a lot from the slot, he's starting to expand his repertoire. Josh Downs, pound for pound, for me, is one of the best players in the draft. He really is. He's tough. He's as tough as a $2 steak. He's got a little Steve Smith Sr. in him. I love the way that he plays, and Dallas got themselves a good one. 27, the Bills. I mean, this is just automatic, isn't it? Like Bijan Robinson going to Buffalo, working with James Cook. I mean, that's going to be a lot of fun. Then you have the Bengals up at 28. So could go a lot of different directions here. That just let go Lyle Collins. They just signed up Orlando Brown Jr. They're probably going to trade Jonah Williams. So in the spot, Dawad Jones, keeping him in state, just plopping him at right tackle. You're going to be good. 29, you got the Saints. This is the pick from the Niners, and their defensive line was gutted in free agency this offseason. So getting Mozzie Smith, just put him at the nose tackle spot, and he is tough to move, and he will find a groove, and he will go from there. 2 picks left. 30, you got the Eagles. So the Eagles already have Brian Branch up at the top. So now, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you could go, but getting a guy who can get after the quarterback, never going to be a problem. So Miles Murphy coming on in to the front 7 there. And then the Chiefs with the last pick of the first round, because remember, the Dolphins got their pick forfeited. So again, getting a guy who can get after the quarterback. Got rid of Frank Clark. Will McDonald, come on down, I-35. You're the next Kansas City Chief. But that's it. That is our first round NFL mock draft. This might be a 1.0. It could be. But for the Vikings, I understand the sexiness and allure of going after Hendon Hooker at 23, but absent trading down, taking Deonte Banks, absolute stud, absolute safe pick at 23 makes a ton of sense. But your thoughts are our first round NFL mock draft. Let us know in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Most worth the work. Put a little something in the Venmo. But till next time, Skol, production value.